Yo, welcome to my channel, Ward Draws a Lot. Obviously I'm Ward, or I wouldn't have named it Ward Draws a Lot. Today I will be using this Dollar Tree heart canvas that I got from like February to draw and paint Kakyoin from Jojo's Bizarre Adventure on it. I have like a little collection on my wall of like a bunch of different characters from Jojo's Bizarre Adventure that have taken a positive effect, or at least have left some kind of stain or impact in my mind. So every few months I update it and I add another one in after I let it sit on who is really important to me in the show. And after long hard thought, I thought of Kakyoin. So I put in an image of my wall so far, which has Jojo, Jolene, Jonathan, Bruno, and then I have that one up there that I did of Bruno and Giorno. Ignore the Geralt one from Witcher, that's just there because I really like how it came out years ago. So there's a bunch of different reasons why I'm adding Kakyoin to the wall. First of all, I just like him as a character. The design is a little different. I've never seen red hair that has like a mullet and then like the hair that's swept over. It's kind of weird. And like the green like school outfit to help contrast between the two. I kind of like that idea. As a character, we don't actually get to learn much about him towards the end of part 3. Which kind of stinks, because after learning just a little taste of him, I kind of wanted more, but of course we're not going to get any, because part 3 ended back in like 1992, and the adaptation of the anime wasn't until later on, but I don't think Adaki's ever going to go back and actually talk about Kakyoin. The thing I think I liked the most about him was just he was the nerd of the group. He had a lot of the brains. He was a very inviting character, although at first he didn't look like it, especially because of the way he acted towards the main character, which is Jojo, and basically he didn't make himself look like a good person, and it was because of a certain reason, but afterwards he became a better person, per se, or became himself again. It's very hard to explain, you're just going to have to watch it in order to understand, but I'm just going to explain that because of what happened in his childhood and how he felt and how things were reflected onto him because of his stand powers, it's kind of how I felt relative to him, because you know, sometimes when you're a kid you just feel lost and like people don't like you or understand you, and to see that a character had that alongside with you is just like, wow, I guess I wasn't the only one who thought that way about myself either. I think we all had something that makes ourselves look a little different, and because of that I was able to relate to him as a character. So not only did he have this kind of like nerdy demeanor and he was like cool and chill to hang with, and he was always buddy-buddy with Jojo, but he also has this little bit of his past that kind of makes you want to look into him more and you wonder more about him. Now, that's not necessarily everybody who watches this show. I just took a liking to him for a bunch of different reasons, and after that I was like, you know what, now that I've sat on this for a few months, I think I should add Kakyoin to my wall, and I'm kind of glad he did because he actually came out pretty cute. So let's talk about these little wooden panels. This one in particular, of course, is in a heart shape, as you can see, because I got it in February from Dollar Tree. So you know how every few months there's a new holiday and a new theme comes out in stores, so when February rolls by, heart stuff, when it's St. Patrick's Day, 4-leaf clovers, all that kind of stuff, right? I saw these and I was like, oh my gosh, it would be great if I took these and I drew characters that I love on them. I didn't know that I would just end up doing JoJo characters so far, but yeah. But anyway, they were $1 each and it couldn't hurt to get them, so that's exactly what I did. So I ended up buying 10 or 15 of them, and then I put them to the side so whenever I wanted to add a new addition to the wall, I could just sketch on it, use my POSCA pens, and do just that. So I'm going to tell you how it is to sketch on this wooden panel. It's not the smoothest thing in the world, and that makes sense because it is wood. It has like almost like these little lines of texture on the wood itself, and you'll see that when I get to paint on them. The lines on the board kind of make sketching not so much harder, but just you gotta work around it. Basically, the pencil can get caught within those lines and can almost make you stop in place sometimes if the lines are too deep within each other. So you just have to keep that in mind as you're sketching, that you shouldn't get thrown off by that, but you could just get used to it. I suggest that if you are going to use these dollar wood panels, I keep forgetting the word for it for some reason, then you should use a lighter hand, because once you start pressing heavy-handedly on your sketch portion, then you're going to see that it's going to leave the marks much easier, and in turn make it harder to erase off of there. So you should use a medium that's a little bit more opaque. So this way you don't really see the lines come up that much unless that's the look you want. So although erasing is a little bit more difficult, it's obviously still doable. I took my kneader and I went over the whole drawing and I lightened it up, so this way the lines still don't show up as much once I start using my POSCA pens. So I started off with the skin like I usually do unless I'm feeling something else that day. And as I'm using this POSCA pen, I'm realizing that it's drying up, or like it doesn't have a lot of ink left in it, so I have to be pretty smart with how I'm using it, because after I do the face, it actually just leaves enough pigment behind for me to finish and touch up different things that I had to go back and forth and do. But otherwise, I really do think I need to buy a new ivory POSCA pen, which is like the skin tone that I mostly use when it's lighter skin tones. Now with POSCA pens, it's usually opaque enough to where you don't need a second layer, but because this marker was running a little low, I had to try and squeeze as much out from the second layer as I could, and I ended up putting like a second layer on top, and then you'll see that I actually blended out with my finger, which I don't suggest you do because you really shouldn't touch paint supplies with your hands, but like my brain was like, I'm right here and I really don't want to go get brushes, so I'm just gonna use my fingers and I don't care. So I blended out with my fingers, and I'm kind of upset because it's kind of rubbing off the same time that I'm trying to do it, and it's like a back and forth thing, you know. So I end up just letting it dry enough and then layering it on top, and then hopefully that works for me, which it actually did, so I'm pretty happy with that. By the way, this might look a little ugly before it gets to be looking pretty, because that's just how the process of painting goes. I feel like no painting just starts out beautiful and ends out beautiful, it takes a while, it takes a bit. So for shading, I used a combination of like peaches and like this light orange and a brown in order to help gain some shadow on his face. I felt like the brown should have been left for outlining the face on the outside and then not so much on the inside, or if I was going to use brown, use it lightly, because I felt like it stood out a little too much and I wanted to kind of look a little smooth. So I ended up having to go back in with the pens and just kind of playing back and forth until I reached a happy medium with how the brown interacted with everything else. For the panel itself, when I put down the colors, it actually went down pretty nicely. The only thing is like those little lines, like I said, from the wood kind of interacted weirdly with it sometimes and made it spread a little bit at points, but otherwise it was okay. And blending the pens together wasn't actually too bad. Usually for POSCA pens, I like to layer on top and not so much blend, because I feel like that's what looks better when it comes to using POSCA pens, but you can layer and blend and do whatever you like with them. Here, I mess up and I panic, because I pumped the marker too hard and a bunch of paint came out, and I was like, crap. So I just let it dry to the side. I was like, okay, I'm not even going to bother touching that, and I just decided to start working on his larger section of hair. So for the hair, what I did was I went in with the main color, which was red, and then I went in with the highlight color in this little empty space that I left. And then I just took my finger and I just kind of blended over it until I was happy enough with how it looked like blended together, which I didn't think that the pink and the red would go together so great, which obviously because they're light colors, of course that would happen. So I just continued that same process with the entire head of hair. I laid down the main color, then the highlight color, and then I just blended out with my finger. Which again, you can totally use a paintbrush. I was just super lazy and I didn't do that. And I actually was pretty happy with how the hair turned out. This is the first time I tried doing it like this for the hair, because usually I just kind of layer on top different layers of color instead of blending them together, but I was actually pretty happy with the result. Next thing I did is I worked on the earrings, which are like little cherries. I guess each character has like their little thing, and his was cherries, which there's a very specific reason why, and I don't even want to say it because I hate that part, but you guys can watch that if you want. All you gotta do is just like look up Kakyoin and cherries, and then boom, you get it. For the little cherry earrings, I didn't want to do red because it would be too similar to the hair, and it would kind of blend in weirdly, so instead I did like a magenta, and I mixed it in with the pink, so it kind of still keeps the idea of cohesiveness and that it matches the outfit, and along with the rest of the character. So I just blended those together. For the outfit, again, same kind of technique where I just use a lighter and darker green and I kind of put them together and blend them out just so they can look like they have some depth to it. After that, I took the white POSCA pen and I colored in the little earring straps that hold the cherries. And for now, I think I left it blank, but then I go back in with a gray later and I shade it out. This part is a little bit more sped up because it's just me going back in with more shading to the face and kind of fixing little things that I thought would look better on it. I also did the same thing with the cherry part of the earring, which is just adding more shading and more highlights to create a little bit more depth within it. I finally get to go in with the black POSCA pen, and I save that for last because if you don't, then the black will mix in with the other colors, causing it to look super messy and just gray in a lot of areas, and you really don't want that. Unless you do, which is again up to you, but I really hate that look because I used to do it a lot and I just can't stand it anymore. And here, after I outline the eyes, is where I finally get to feel like the piece is actually coming together, because now the main focus, which I feel the main focus, are the eyes on the face, finally get to show up and have this little, not like moment, but it kind of just makes it look like he's looking at you to a degree. So now that I finished the piece, I can finally go in with something that I call the sprinkles, which is me taking a combination of purples, pinks, or whatever's in the outfit, and kind of like putting it in the hair or anywhere I feel like it should be to kind of give it a little bit more visual interest. Yeah, that's a good way to describe it, visual interest. And I just keep going until I feel like it's enough or I'm happy with it, but I make sure to try not to overdo it, because if I do, then it's going to look super messy and it's going to be like, what was the point of me coloring that whole area with a certain color if it's just going to look like a mess. So here I finally grab my gray and I start shading the little strap of the cherry earring, or earrings, and I felt like it just helped it out so much more because it made it stand out. It looked like it blended in a little bit too much with the skin. After I did that, I highlighted the eyes, which I felt like really gave him this life factor, or made him look like he had come to life now, or is a little bit more lively. I don't know how to say it. There's like a bunch of different ways to say it. And then I finally get to do what is one of my favorite parts. It's just coloring in the rest of the heart pink, because my wall is like a dark pink, so this stands out against it because it's lighter, and I really like it. You know, pink is like such a cute color. I love it. After doing all that, I finally sign it, and then I get to look at it and enjoy how it looks. I really ended up liking how this came out, especially because at one point I just wanted to kind of give up because I thought it was looking like really buns, like super booty, and I was just like, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. But I told myself, don't give up so quickly, let's just push through and see how this goes, and that's exactly what I did, and I couldn't be happier with it. At the end, when I was finished, then I finally removed the tag. I don't know if that bothered anybody in particular. Sometimes people just like seeing the tag off or whatever. I don't know. I just save it for the end to kind of make it look like, hey, I did this and now it's finally complete. I can remove the tag. And overall, I love it. So here's like a little still shot of what it looks like after it's been completed, and how many markers I ended up using because it was so many different things that I had to do. But I really did have fun doing this, even though at one point I struggled really hard. And here's a picture of him on my wall with the rest of the Jojo characters. And I'm pretty glad that now he's got a new home, and it just so happens to be next to me. So thank you for watching, and remember, I love you.